The Espace d'Art Contemporain Fernet Branca is a former distillery in St. Louis, Alsace, France. It was transformed in 2004 into a beautiful 10,000 square foot exhibition space. This is a visual record of an exhibition curated by Florence Gouillonneau-Joie of 120 works by Charles Pollock. Charles was born in 1902, the eldest brother of Jackson Pollock. The exhibition begins with a room of photographs of Charles, his family and friends, for context and background. The Pollocks were not, as myth would have it, a simple farm family from the West, but people with aspirations and a certain style. Here is Charles with his parents and his 4 brothers in Arizona around 1915, with friends and colleagues, in Mexico with his best student and future wife Sylvia Winter in 1954, with Clement Greenberg, in Rome with Giorgio Cavalon and James Brooks, with Piero d'Orazio and Barnett Newman. Room 2 shows Charles Pollock's early work, his artistic beginnings. After some formative experiences in California, he went to New York to study with Thomas Hart Benton at the Art Students League. Benton, a regionalist painter, had his students analyze Renaissance paintings, but he also sent them out on the road to sketch what they saw. Charles made portraits at the Chicago World's Fair in 1933 and landscapes on Martha's Vineyard. Times were hard in those days between natural disasters and the Great Depression. Charles traveled through the United States and recorded the Great Drought. In 1940, Charles was in Detroit working for the United Automobile Workers newspaper. In 1942, he was working on a mural in the Michigan State College auditorium. Charles Pollock was a remarkable printmaker. This is Charles at his Washington hand press in Michigan. It introduces Room 3, mostly prints, among them the first abstractions. Some of these works testify to an early interest in the calligraphic, and what was formerly figurative is now abstract. The room ends with an early collage, a 1950 homage to Mexico. Room 4 is entirely dedicated to the Chapala series, made in Mexico during 1955-56. Many of these works confirm and continue Charles's interest in calligraphy. For Charles, that year in Mexico was the fulfillment of an old dream. He had wanted to go to Mexico as a young man in California, but had chosen New York instead. Upon his return from Mexico, Charles Pollock learned of the death of his youngest brother Jackson in an automobile accident. 2 years later, his mother Stella died. It was years before he returned to painting, and when he did, the joy had been crushed. The paintings are reflective, even melancholic. In Room 5, the Black and Gray series begins with a collage in 1959. The paintings are in some ways an entry into another way of seeing, another way of expressing feelings. The calligraphic has been abandoned in favor of big shapes stemming from torn paper collages, non-objective black forms on many subtly different gray backgrounds, with an increasing attention to the figure-ground relationship. In the 6th room, the Black and Color series is a continuation of the exploration begun in 1960. The shapes are black, but they loom larger. One is tempted to think these works are greatly enlarged details from the previous series. The grounds are more colorful, the scale is more monumental, and the ground and the figure often exchange places. The paintings move. The Rome series fills the large 7th room. These drawings, prints, and paintings were made in Rome during a second and last sabbatical year in 1962-63. Again, the shapes are black, but there are unexpected variations. A line of color in a painting, a line of white in a drawing or a print. The Fernet Branca exhibition ends in a splash of color in room 8. This series of paintings and works on paper was made in Michigan in 1964, after the sabbatical year in Rome. It is as if, having worked through the dark period, Charles's innate sense of color is given free rein. The small drawings made with colored pencils show a seemingly endless variety of imaginative constructions within the same configuration. Some of the pastels echo shapes we have seen in the Rome series. Charles Pollock painted for another 20 years. He remained, throughout the last part of his artistic life, a colorist.